All right, everyone. Well, this is so great to see you all. Really thankful that you made time to join us. We are talking about the power of positive schools today. I am joined by Jim Van Allen. He is our VP of Positive Schools, and he is Dr. Jim Van Allen, which is so funny to say that because I knew Jim when he was like 20 years old. And Jim reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I want to do what you do. I want to speak. I'm speaking at all these leadership events as a college student. I speak to high school students around the country, and I want to do this on a more professional level. Will you mentor me? Will you give me advice?" I reached out. I said, "Hey, Jim, I'm going on an Energy Bus book tour. My book, The Energy Bus, just came out. This was 2007. The book had just come out. I said, you want to go on this tour with me? You want to speak for me? Introduce me. I need some help planning hotels." Now, I didn't know when I asked Jim to do this that I would actually get sick on this tour. So sick that I literally was like I couldn't even speak. I was that sick. I was throwing up. Let's put it that way. Let's be honest. I was that sick. I had some kind of food poisoning or something. It was in Nebraska. So my friends from Nebraska, it started there. Wichita, Kansas, Nebraska, all that, going from city to city. I got so sick, but somehow, some way, I still spoke in each city. Jim helped me get through that. Years later, Jim winds up getting his PhD. He is now a professor in college. He is also our VP of Positive Schools, and he runs the Energy Bus for Schools program. And Jim also did his thesis for his PhD on the Energy Bus and the impact it has on schools. So this is really personal for him. Jim, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John, for that. It's amazing the journey that we've been on individually and together. And he's right. I reached out 20 years old, sent an email, and now here we are 15 years later. And I always like to brag that I saw the Energy Bus before it was even a hardcover book, when it was in its infancy, and you wanted me to kind of check it out and see what was it about. And now here we are, and we are launching a giant schools program. And real quick, when we were on that Energy Bus tour, 20 years old, I was petrified that you're going to have to wake up the next morning and say, Jim, you're going to have to take this 3-hour event. But I was ready. It didn't happen. You had that grit, but I was definitely ready to do it if need be. But I am thrilled to be here, also in sunny Florida, interacting with all of you.
Yeah, somehow, some way made it through. So I have a master's in teaching. A lot of people don't know that. I have a master's in teaching, and I am passionate about schools, about educators, about leadership in schools, about students, because that experience working in a school for that year, I worked in a school for a year. It was a long year, but I worked in a school for a year and enough to learn what teachers do, what educators do, how challenging it is, what schools need. And years later, it would become a passion, a calling to make a difference in the lives of schools, principals, students, and teachers. So just can't thank you enough for joining us. We're going to get right into it right now. And we're going to talk about positive schools. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about teamwork. We're going to give you practical ideas today. And let's jump right in. Jim, when we talk about positive schools, we also have to ask the question, why aren't schools positive? Like, where are the sources of negativity coming from? And what are the factors that could actually cause a school to not perform at a high level?
Unfortunately, we want our schools to be the most positive, engaged places right in the whole world, because environment has a massive impact on our students and on our teachers. But unfortunately, there are schools that are not positive, and they're dealing with a lot. And there's probably a lot of you on this call who may be in that situation. But I would say that if for schools that are not as positive as we want them to be, you have to start with communication first. And I would say that there is maybe a disconnect between teachers and administrators. There's a disconnect there. There's sometimes some natural friction that can occur. And you have the communication with your parents and your community as well. We forget that our parents and our community should be active, vibrant parts of our campus culture. But if we're not communicating with those stakeholders, our mission, our vision, what we're doing on this campus, and having open, honest feedback and conversations with them, that can be an issue. Because what do you always say, John? When there's a void, right? Negativity is going to fill it. And it's the same thing with communication. When there's a void in communication, right, people tend to fill it with their own ideas and their own perceptions. So the more we communicate, the more you're going to fill those voids. So I think starting with communication is a good place. Unfortunately, when schools are not as negative, so administrators and teachers and the school with the parents and the stakeholders. And I think you also have to look at lack of alignment, right? So school sets a mission, school sets a vision, and then they just stay on the wall. Like, how many of you have your mission and your vision statements up and they're behind that plastic, right? That you got to slip the paper in and you can kind of go like this and there's dust come out. And I'll do this at my schools. If I go to a school, I'll cover it up and I'll say, all right, who can say the mission or vision statement? And everybody kind of looks at me. There's no alignment with it. They forget about it. And vision is central to creating a positive campus culture because it's something you can all rally around. But if you don't know your vision, if you don't know your mission, if everything you do doesn't align to that, you're going to have a lot of disconnection. You're going to have a lot of disconnection, and it's going to cause a lot of heartache. It's going to cause morale issues. I mean, so John mentioned real quick that I had done my dissertation on the energy bus and on schools. And I wanted to let you know one statistic real quick, talking about negative schools. And this is a verified, Dr. Seidel does research into schools. They find that 500,000 teachers leave the profession annually. Not, folks, annually, okay? Because, and one of the number one things is morale. They're not happy there. They're not being treated well. They're not feeling valued. They're not feeling heard. The communication's not there. There's a disconnect with administrators. So think about all those teachers that are leaving the profession who probably got into it for the right reasons, right? They care so much about their students, but we're also, you know, when it comes down to it, we're human beings and we want to feel loved and valued and respected and come to a place that reflects that as well and treats us well as teachers. And we're losing a lot of good teachers. And that's a big reason why John and I wanted to, you know, get this program going so we can fill your campuses with the most positive things out there.
Jim, I love that you said that because for me, when I taught for that year, one of the reasons why I left after that year was a lot of the teachers I was working with, I was on a teaching team. All they did was complain every single day. And they were complaining about the students. They were complaining about their jobs. They were complaining. And I thought, if this is teaching, because that was my only experience, I don't want any part of it. Years later, I would write the no complaining rule. This is a good practical tip for your schools. The no complaining rule says you're not allowed to complain unless you go and come with a solution. So if you want to complain, great, bring your solution that will make us better, that will improve. And if you have a complaint, we want to hear it because it's going to make us better, but don't just mindlessly complain because that will sabotage your culture. It will sabotage your team. When you know your mission, and the mission and vision should always be about the students, making an impact in students' lives, right? When we know that, we're not going to let things get in the way of what we're here to do. Every school today has a mission statement, but only the great ones have people on a mission. So at Positive Schools, we're all about helping schools be on a mission, to share the mission, to talk about the mission, to live the mission. And so, as you said, Jim, those words written on the walls have to come alive in the hearts and the minds of the teachers and the students. But you have to have the alignment. You talked about communication. You have to have communication and make sure you're communicating the values. This is what we believe. This is what we stand for. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how we have difficult conversations. You have to build your culture, right? So in Positive Schools, we have a Power Positive Leadership Program, which is a train the trainer program and a training program for principals. We work with principals and superintendents to teach them how to implement these principles and practices from a leadership perspective in a school. And then from there, we have a Power of a Positive Team program where the team comes together as a staff to become a more cohesive staff, to collectively work together, to be more connected and committed. We're going to get to that in a second on some tips on how to do that. I'm just giving you an overview of how this works. And you maintain a common language, common values, common dialogue that everyone knows where we're going, why we're going there, who we are, what we do. And that culture then is reinforced every single day. And culture is not just one thing. Culture is everything. It's not just one person, it's everyone. Everyone in your school creates the culture of it, from the custodial staff to the workers in the kitchen, to the teachers, the para support. Everyone creates the culture. And culture is not static, culture is dynamic. So every day you're creating your culture by what you think, by what you say, and by what you do. Jim, what are some concrete ways? Let's give some practical tips. What are some concrete ways that school leaders can think about to build their culture on a daily basis? You do a lot of work with schools on this, on practically building their culture. How can they start the process if they're not doing it?
Oh, so I've had this question a little bit from principals that I've interacted with on, how do we start this positive campus culture? And I always go, here's the first thing I always tell them. I say, your culture starts with relationships, and it starts with individual relationships. And they tell me, well, we have meetings, right? We have meetings, we have relationships. I say, well, oh, that's great. That's a great way to do big picture information. But what about your individual relationships with teachers and with support staff and with custodian and with every department? I said, your job as a leader on your campus, your job as a principal, as a superintendent, is relationships. So I would say, a concrete way, if you can do one-on-ones, that's awesome. That's great. That's probably the most effective way. Now, for for timing wise, sometimes I encourage our principals to do sort of mix it up, change it up a little bit. How about we meet, 3 or 4 teachers at once, and we just do 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Let's bring coffee right before, let's just talk, kind of unfiltered. Let's just get to know each other. Let's talk about some ideas. You kind of small group it. Let's make it random, and we have this grade here or this grade here. So I've given that tip to some principals on a coaching call, and then I'll check in with them a month or so later. How did it go? How did it go? It went great, right? Go figure, because when you communicate, you're going to learn so much, not only about each other, but then they're going to bring ideas to the table, innovative ideas that they may not be willing to share in a large group meeting. Myself, if you put me in a group of 100 people, I may not be the one to raise my hand and say, I have an idea, right? But if you bring me in one-on-one or small group style, I'll talk your ear off, right? So I think starting there at that relational level is just I don't want to say it's an easy way to do it, but it's such a practical thing that you can do if you're willing to put in the time and effort to have those meetings, because relationships are a choice, right? They're a choice. So we have to make that choice to put the time into it.
I love that you said that, because it's about one-on-one, connecting one-on-one. And in our trainings, what we encourage leaders to do is to meet one-on-one with a team member each day, 1 to 3 people a day. But make it one, like put that into your schedule, put that into your routine to have one-on-one connections. It only has to be like a 10-minute meeting. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. But if you're intentional with your connections as a school leader, one-on-one each day, you will really enhance your culture, as Jim's talking about, with the connection that you have. Then your job as a leader is to make sure you're fostering connection amongst the team, right? So you want to lead with connection, connecting one-on-one, and then you want to help the team get connected to be a stronger team. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that connection piece is essential. Another key part of creating a great culture is to have common values, common dialogue, and common language. And so you want to make sure that you're doing that. Now, a lot of times we do themes as, schools and school leaders. A lot of times schools will use my books, and I'm honored and thankful that they do that. But here's the thing. I don't want them just to be themes. I don't want you to just pick a theme each year, because a lot of times you can move from theme to theme. What you want to do is build a culture, not just have a theme. Themes don't last. Culture does. Culture drives the theme. Culture drives the success. So themes are good, but allow your culture to drive your theme. We have the Energy Bus for Schools program now for elementary schools. And some middle schools are jumping on as well. Even some high schools want to do it, but any school can do it. But it's implementing the energy bus into your school. And we've had over, I don't know, thousands of schools do the energy bus as part of their culture. Creates a common language, common dialogue, values, principles, now that everyone talks about ongoing for the year. So yeah, the principles are strong, the values are great, the energy is great, brings a lot of positive energy, but the real secret sauce is not the book. The secret sauce is you. The secret sauce is the leadership. The secret sauce is the team coming together, having a common thing to talk about. The energy bus is just a sticky concept. There are other concepts out there that are great too. But having that sticky concept is key, because everyone's talking about the same thing, talking about the values. And it shouldn't just be done in 1 year timeframes, right? We're going to have a multi-year program to implement, to create our culture, live and breathe it every single day. I've worked with a number of sports teams and NFL teams, NBA teams, and businesses. And people always ask me, what's the difference between schools, businesses, and sports? Nothing. It's all the same. The same principles apply. And when you implement your culture, that culture will drive your sustained success, that you want. But you've got to be intentional with it, because a lot of times you'll say, all right, we got a great culture now, we're good. No, you're not good, because your culture is only as good as what you have done today. It's dynamic, as I said, not static. So every day you're creating it. So what kind of culture are we creating today? Someone just wrote consistent. Matthew wrote consistent. I love that. Yes, consistency is the key. When you have consistency, consistency is what builds trust in your culture of your school. Many people follow the Alabama football program, Nick Saban. His secret to success is his consistency. I had a coach tell me the other day that they know exactly the time that he's going to have a candy bar at 5 p.m. every single day. And they know what candy bar at what time. He is that consistent. And so even though he might be hard on the guy sometimes, and they may not like him sometimes, right? He's so consistent that they trust him because they know what to expect. They know what's coming, and this is how things are being done here. So that is what we love doing with our Power of Positive Leadership, Power of Positive team, the Energy Bus for Schools. We help you drive the principles and consistency that is key every day. So that's essential. So Jim, we just talked about culture. Now let's talk about leadership, how leaders drive the school culture. It comes to life from everyone, but leaders set the tone, leaders set the culture, and your leadership matters. Like who you are determines how you lead. You take a great principal and you put that principal into an underperforming school, that principal is going to turn around that school. We have seen it over and over again. We have worked with those schools. We have worked with those principals. We have seen it. Jim, what are some common characteristics, for school leaders that you see that works? Like, what does it mean to be a positive leader that has a positive impact on your school? And what do those actions look like?
I would say ambition to me stands out. The schools that I've worked with, a lot of times they'll bring in energy bus training or power positive leadership training, power positive team, and there may be a newer principal, and they're at the school, and they always are trying to leave their mark and create, kind of go in a new direction. And I always admire them for bringing in the training and wanting to do something different on campus and wanting to try something different on campus and going around and talking to all the teachers and having a smile on their face and bringing in food for the teachers. But they're ambitious because they believe in creating a positive campus culture, and they'll do anything in a positive light to do that. So I think to be a positive leader on a campus, you have to be ambitious. You have to be willing to, be innovative with things in your curriculum, professional development you bring in, your leadership style, right? Being ambitious to be able to kind of change your leadership style depending on the situation at hand, depending on the student in front of you, because one leadership style, one way of communicating is not going to work with this, with different people and different personalities. And being on, all of you being on a school campus, right? I mean, what a just an amazing, like you have 800, 900 people in one building. It's like, all right, get along, right? It's not that easy. So we have to be willing to kind of change our styles up and be situational. I think when you're an ambitious leader, that will allow you to do that, not kind of get stuck doing the same thing year after year. That's what builds stagnation. If you're not growing, if you're just stagnating as a school and even as leadership, then you're not going anywhere. And our schools need to be the ones to be ambitious, to be saying, we're going to push the envelope. We're going to try some new things out. We're going to be, bringing in training that's going to really, maybe we haven't done this type of training before, but it's going to teach us about culture and communication and leadership, all these soft skills that can help us develop this positive campus culture. So I'm always definitely in awe of the principals and superintendents and leaders who are trying different things and are, different events and different field trips, and they're doing it because they genuinely love the school, right? They love the kids, they love the teachers. That's why they're in that position, right? That's why they're in that leadership role, because of the love on their hearts. And I'm looking at some of you in these rooms here, right? And while you're in here, you probably love all your students so much. And if you're an administrator, you love your teachers and you love your staff, and you're willing to be ambitious and be innovative. And I think that will definitely, breed a positive leader.
When you talk about innovating and ambitious and trying new things, that jives with consistency. So you're consistent with your values, you're consistent with how you lead and what people can expect from you. From that consistency, you then innovate from that consistency of who you are and what people can expect. You're innovating with new ideas. You have a tradition that you have built. And from that tradition, there's power and strength from your past to then create the future with adaptation and innovation. And so that's what Jim's talking about, making sure that we have the central foundation of our culture, and then from there being ambitious to innovate from there and trying new things. Also, positive leadership is essential. Remember this, folks. Leadership is a transfer of belief. Leadership is a transfer of belief. And leaders, you are contagious every day. We've been hearing that for over a year now, that we're contagious in a negative way. But let me tell you something. Hope is contagious. Kindness is contagious. Your purpose is contagious. Your passion is contagious. So how you lead and the energy you share is essential as a positive leader. And if you don't have it, you can't share it. So you have to make sure you're feeding yourself every day in order to feed others. As part of the Energy Bus for Schools program, we have a monthly coaching call, right? There's a monthly coaching webinar every month, virtual, just like this. It looks just like this, where all the principals come together and they're sharing energy with each other. This is schools from around the country that do an Energy Bus for Schools, and they're sharing information, ideas with each other, fueling each other so that you can go back to your schools and be energized. You got to energize yourself each day. You got to feed yourself each week in order to feed others as a leader. One tip to remember, it's all about encouragement. I know it sounds basic, but encouragement is everything. Chewy Cathy said, how do you know if a man or a woman needs encouragement? If they're breathing. We all need encouragement. Your teachers need it. Your students need it. Your community needs it. Everyone needs encouragement. The word encourage means to put courage into. So when you encourage someone, you're putting courage into them. When you encourage yourself, you're putting courage into yourself. And maybe each day you need to encourage yourself as a leader. Who needs more encouragement or to encourage themselves? Just raise your hand if you know in the field of education, you know you need a little more encouragement, right? I was just in Sheldon, Iowa. No one wanted to raise their hand. I was like, what in Iowa? No one wanted to raise their hand it was an in-person talk, which was great, but no one wanted to raise their hand. It's nice to see people raise their hand here. So we know we need encouragement. We got to feed ourselves. That's important too, from a leadership perspective, where you're not doing it alone. You need to do it as a leadership team and come together as a team in order to make sure that you're leading together, supporting each other, where you're aligned on the values, the principles, the culture, the mission. And that's why when you have all these things in a framework, and then there's a curriculum to implement, a program to implement, you do it step by step, your school just takes off. Your school like just soars. Jim, in your research, that you did with school culture, how important is school culture and leadership in driving the success of the school?
Well, I mean, so from what I looked at, right, it's the leader, it's the administrators who are driving. They're bringing in the material, they're driving everything, they're setting the agenda, they're setting the expectations, setting the vision, and not only that, they believe in it, right? They believe in it with every fiber of their being that we are going to be this kind of school. We're going to be a positive school. We're going to be an Energy Bus school, or we're going to be a school that is all about unity. So they don't just, it's not just words coming out of their mouth at a staff meeting. They believe it, right? There's conviction behind it. So all the research that I did pointed to the fact that you need a stable, dynamic, administrator to lead the school to be able to have that type of conviction for the material. Because think about it, anybody who's on here who's in a leadership role, right? How can we expect our teachers and our support staff and every stakeholder involved in the school to want to create a positive campus culture, to want to get on our bus, right, with our vision for our school? We don't believe in it ourselves as a leader. And if we can't communicate it effectively through multiple channels to hit all of our stakeholders. So that research was really clear. And I'll tell you, the principal that I worked with for my dissertation she's still there in Ohio, right? In Ohio, Keystone Elementary, shout out to Ohio. She's still there doing Energy Bus almost 5 years later. And the school has just taken off, right? They create so many new ideas. They're always talking Energy Bus stuff. There's such a great campus culture, but they have a leader who's driving it. They have a leader and an assistant principal and a support staff and all the teachers. I talked to every teacher on that campus, talked to every single one of them. Didn't get one negative thing, right? And this was an independent, this was an independent research. They could have said whatever they wanted. No, it didn't work. I didn't like this. And everybody enjoyed the process. Now, those of you who are on here, right? How many times have you ever had teachers in unison, right? Raise your hand. In unison about something. I can tell you at this school, and they are definitely a microcosm for other schools out there. They saw that their leader was driving the energy bus material on that campus. They saw that their leader was passionate and had conviction and was going to be consistently bringing an energy bus and be consistently talking about a positive campus culture. And now 5 years later, they're still doing it, and they're still innovating, and they're still creating. But it started, of course, with the leader saying, this is what we're going to be about, and I believe it.
We had a principal at one of our schools, and she had a negative teacher that was not willing to change. It was getting very difficult for her in leading the culture of that school. So she reached out to us, what should I do? And we said, keep building your culture. Build it so strong. Keep infusing it with all the teachers. Build it so strong that teacher will get off the bus. Will get off because she doesn't fit in. So just keep building that culture so strong that it's uncomfortable for her. She kept building it, wasn't sure if it would work. By the end of the year, that teacher got off the bus. She walked up to her principal and said, I can't do this anymore. This place is too positive for me. I feel like I'm getting run over by the bus because I won't change. I won't change. I won't change from negative to positive. I won't change to impact my teachers. I won't change to be a more positive influence on my students. I won't change and stop sabotaging the culture of our school. No, she wouldn't change. So she got off the bus. She's now on a bus somewhere else, right? Making that bus miserable. And this principal was able to transform the school. The next year, morale soared. Morale soared the next year. I mean, it was incredible what happened. It really made me think how one person can't make a team, but one person could break a team. We have to make sure we address the negativity that exists in our schools. And I want to tell you, this is very practical. We do this in our trainings, and we've been talking a lot about that. But again, because I just want to speak from experience. When Jim and I share these examples, it's because it's what we do. We live, we breathe. We're speaking from our experiences of what we've seen and what we know works. And we've learned from so many educators we get to work with. Like, we don't have all the answers. We've worked with so many. But one thing we do in our trainings is talk about how we negativity. And what we do is we get the group in the room and talk about how did you deal with it and what worked. And everyone starts to share best practices, best ideas. This is our Power of Positive Leadership training for school leaders and also business leaders and sports leaders. But people come together from this leadership standpoint, hear great ideas. And it's amazing what happens when these leaders address the negativity. The biggest mistake that leaders make, take note of this, the biggest mistake they make is they do not address the negativity that exists. So what happens? It sabotages the school. It persists, it exists, and eventually will sabotage the school. We must address the negativity. And that, what I'm proud of most, people say, what are you proud of most with your work? We help school leaders and school districts do this because it must be done. I've helped Fortune 500 companies. I've helped teams like the Rams, the Dodgers, the Miami Heat. That's why they have success. It's not me. I help them remove the negativity, address the negativity, so that way everyone can come into an environment and do their best work and thrive. And that's what it's all about. As a leader, we must address. I love someone just wrote, Katie just said, what you permit, you promote. Wow, Katie, that's powerful. Man, I always say the genius is in the audience. It's not on stage, right? It's always in the audience. And so it has to come from an authentic place, as Matthew just said. Yes. So we want to make sure that we're coming with real positivity, not toxic positivity. We've been hearing a lot about toxic positivity in education. We are not about toxic positivity. This is about the real stuff that makes great schools, great leaders great. This is not about ignoring reality. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to address our challenges. We're going to address the issues. This is about maintaining optimism, belief, and faith in order to create a better reality. Daniel just posted a link of an article I wrote on toxic positivity, if you want to check that out in the chat section. So this is about making sure we address the issue. We do it in an authentic way, a real way. We hear when our teachers are concerned. We understand their challenges. So we're not saying, oh, you're an energy vampire if you just have a problem, if you're not happy today. That's not being an energy vampire. We're here to listen. We're here to be there for our teachers. And the more we as school leaders address the issues and talk about the issues and listen, the better relationship that we build that Jim talked about earlier, that build those relationships, build those connections, and then we're able to move forward together. This brings us to a very important part of what we're here to talk about. And again, negativity is a key piece that we address. Just remember that. And it's why our schools have so much success. It's why our principals have so much success. It's because we get the negativity out of the way so everyone can do their best work. But let's talk about now building a team. Positive leaders, positive schools build great teams. This is where the power of a positive team comes in. And Jim, there's a factor. It's the number one predictor in student learning. What is that number one predictor and factor in student learning?
Collective teacher efficacy, also known as collective belief. It's the new number one factor that determines student success. And that's from John Hattie. John Hattie does a lot of research into schools. And I will tell you, it is the central talk about knowing vision, your foundation. It is the foundation for our Energy Bus for Schools and Power Positive Schools program. When John and I were kind of retooling things, we found this collective belief. And it's everybody, and let's talk about from a school perspective, right? Let's talk about it. It's your teachers, everybody on campus, your shared belief of your capabilities to impact students and to have success. So everybody on campus, no matter what your role is, believes that they cause student success and they cause student learning. So you have to believe that. And we use our Energy Bus principles and we use our Power Positive Leadership, Power Positive Team principles, right, to kind of energize you and fuel that belief. But that's what it's about, right? Creating a great team, everybody's unified. I can't tell you how many, principal calls I've been on this past 2 months since we've launched our programs. And I hear some of the same things. We need to be more unified. I was just on a call with the school in Jacksonville. I think they're here, KIPP Jacksonville. But they talked about we need to come together more this year, right? We've been disjointed because of COVID and other things. And in schools, there's a lot of regulations and stuff you all have to deal with. And that causes people to take sides, right, immediately when stuff comes down the pipe. And that is not going to create a positive campus culture, but unified collective teacher efficacy will. And I said this in the Power of Positive Summit a few weeks ago. I said, teachers who are listening, you cause the learning. Okay, my administrators who are listening, you cause the learning. The bus driver, the custodian, the cafeteria, you cause the learning because you are creating this unified environment with your attitude, with your belief, with the relationships that you share, but it is a group's shared collective belief, something you can rally around. And John mentioned, Energy Bus and common language. That was the number one thing that my research found in my dissertation. The teachers love the common language. We could use terms like, are you on my bus, right? Did you fuel your ride? They're an energy vampire, right? All this common language. And they found the students were doing it too. And the students were saying it at home, which were cracking the parents up. But you see what I'm saying here, right? Common language. Everybody's using the same language. Everybody's rallying around these positive principles. That's collective belief. And that will fuel you to create a great and unified campus team, no matter the role. That's what I think that's important here. No matter the role, everybody on that campus should feel valued and feel like they have a voice and feel like they contribute to the student learning and student success and school success, because you know what? The research shows that when you believe it, you do. You absolutely do.
So good, Jim. I love that because for years, right, I've been talking about positivity and belief. And a lot of times people are like, oh, belief, positivity, poo. And they laugh at it. They roll their eyes. And now we have like this amazing research from John Hattie that shows, right, collective belief, because you believe it, you take the actions necessary to create it. We believe our students can do extraordinary things. And as a result of that, our students do. So it's the collective teacher efficacy that inspires and encourages and creates self-efficacy, right? I believe in you. We believe in you as students. And then they start to believe in themselves. That's where leadership is a transfer belief comes in. So we believe, and then you believe in them, and then they start to believe. It's incredible how belief really plays a role in this. You might have heard me talk about research from Duke University. They did research on optimists. They found that optimists work harder, get paid more, and are more likely to succeed in business and sports, and I would say schools too. What they found was these optimists, because they believed in a brighter, better future. they took the actions necessary to create it. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what we believe so often determines what we create. Now, here's the thing. As a school staff, this is essential. Great leaders build great relationships and great teams. You have to have a united, connected, committed, and positive school staff in order to create success. I wrote a book, You Win in the Locker Room First. You win in the locker room, then you win on the field. You win in the teacher lounge. You win in the relationships that the teachers have and their collective belief and relationships. And then you win in the hearts and the minds of your students. We often don't talk about that, do we? So often we talk about, right, test scores and numbers and outcomes and everything on a teacher's plate, everything on a principal's plate. And yet we don't get down to the basics of, we got to be a strong team. It's like a family too. You know, I learned this with my own family. The times where we were going, doing, I wasn't a great father. I look back on that. I wasn't a great father during those times. My kids told me so. Dad, you're always driving me to be a success, to do this. I'm like, oh man, because that was how I drove myself, right? And then the times we just hung out and just talked, relationship, investing in each other. That was where the good stuff happened. Now we do have to push sometime. We have to drive, but
Hi, Dad.
always remember this principle: love tough. Bernie, can you mute yourself? Thank Bernie. Just love tough. You have to love your team, love each other. Then you can challenge each other. But relationships come first. Andy Stanley said, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. Collective teacher efficacy. That is awesome. Yes, Tammy, I hope Bernie was calling his dad and encouraging him, because that would be awesome. So yeah, I'm having a like multifaceted here, work here. So it's good. So that's what we're talking about. Collective teacher efficacy. Remember that it is key for your staff, key for that. If you haven't done so, read The Power of a Positive Team, Power of a Positive Team with your school. And just know we also have workshops where we come in with your school staff and we do workshops to help you build a stronger team. We do it in sports, we do it in businesses, we do it in schools. Power of a Positive Team for schools, essential to build a stronger team. We do it virtually as well, but more powerful in person. So Jim, we just talked about collective teacher efficacy, teamwork. We talked about leadership. We talked about culture. Let's talk about just one tip, one great tip for educators to make a greater difference in students' lives. For me, what I think about when I think of that, I think of purpose. Like for me, when you remember your purpose and you know your why, you'll know the way. When you know your purpose is to make a difference in those students' lives, every day you're going to show up to make a difference. You're going to find one way that you're going to do that. A crisis will reveal who you are, what you value, and what you believe. Who you are, what you value, what you believe. During this past year, I realized I am an encourager. That's who I am. I realized I valued relationships during quarantine and not being able to see a lot of people. You know what I realized most? I realized I really liked people. I realized I really liked people and I missed them. So I valued relationships. And then what I believe in this work more than ever because I've seen how great leaders this year made a greater difference. I saw the ones who struggled. I saw the ones who helped their team thrive. So to make a difference in your students' lives, knowing who you are as a teacher, encourager, listener, facilitator, guider, knowledge instructor, whatever it may be, right? However you see yourself, who are you? What do you value? Value that relationship with the student and who they are as a person. Believe you can make a difference in their life and bring your greater purpose to do that. We're not always going to be positive in the morning we get up. We know that, right? There are tough days. It is a long year in education. We talk about the 20th mile when teachers hit their 20th mile. We all have a 20th mile. That's when most people quit the marathon. And we know people are tired and drained during a school year. Usually it's about March or April, right? We know that, right? We have that time. But we know that it's the purpose that will often give us something to be positive about. So the days you get up, you don't feel very positive, remember that purpose because it's the teachers in my life who made a difference in my life. Jim, what's that one thing that you would say for educators for an impact on their students?
You talked a lot about, making a difference. And I cannot tell you real quick just how excited I am to be getting on the road in this summer and fall to help these schools with these in-person trainings, with our Energy Bus for Schools program, because it's all about making a difference. And I want to live my purpose like John talked about. And I believe it is working with schools and teachers and educators with John. And what I've learned the most too, and I think it's going to really help you make a difference in the lives of your students too, is to continue to be resilient. Okay, continue. If there's one thing I learned right about this past year, is I wanted myself and my family to be resilient, right? To be a resilient American family, to be resilient in the face of challenge, to be resilient in the face of adversity. Teachers, administrators on this call, right? If you made it through this past year, you can make it through anything, right? Could you experience stuff that we hope that you'll never have to experience, and challenges we hope you never have to, go through again. So if you think about resiliency, if you're resilient, right, that's going to allow you, it's going to allow you to deal better with your anxiety, to deal better with fears, because when challenges happen, when things happen around us that we don't have much experience with, it's going to breed a symptom, which is anxiety, which is negativity. And the anxiety, negativity, all these things are symptoms of something else larger going on in our life. So if we can develop a resilient mindset, a resilient personality, that's going to help us think more positive, isn't it? Because then we now have the belief and we have the fortitude to not be consumed by that challenge, whatever that challenge looks like in the new school year. And guess what? You're going to bring that into your classrooms. You're going to bring that into your students, because not only do we want our schools and teachers to be resilient, I hope everybody hears me, right? We need our students and our kids to be resilient moving forward too. John mentioned he's a dad. I'm a dad as well, a 6 and a 4-year-old going into the public schools now, right? And I want them to be resilient. And I want them to have teachers that are resilient as well, because resiliency, to me, it brings you out of the noise around you, right? Isn't society noisy sometimes, right? There's so much going on social media and in our world and in our news. There's so much noise and people pulling you in all these different directions. But if you're resilient, you'll know what you stand for. You'll know what you're about.
And I would add to that in terms of if you're resilient, you're going to help students be resilient. So the way you can make a difference in your students' lives is to help them be resilient. One thing you could do to help them is to ask them what their vision is. Like, where are you going? Where do you want to go? And then why do you want to go there? We call it the telescope and microscope. It's part of our training. Telescope and microscope. What's the big picture vision you want to create? What's the zoom focus action you're going to take to get there? You have a conversation with them. What's your telescope? What's your microscope? You ask them that. We also have Power of Positive Leadership for teens, where we do this as well. Where do you want to go? What's your vision? And then what are you going to do each day to get there? That's the telescope, big picture, zoom focus action. You talk about it with them and you ask them this question: and how can I help you get there? Now you are their partner. You're their partner in growth as you move forward. That's one tip that you can start doing today to make a difference. I want everyone to leave here with one idea, one thing they're going to do differently, one thing they're going to do to make a greater difference. We shared a lot today. I want to encourage you to pick one you're going to act on as a leader, as a team member. Want to close with telling you again, you heard about our programs. We have a Power of Positive Schools now. We're excited about what we're doing in this area. We're going to have over 100 schools with Energy Bus for Schools joining us this year. We'd love for you to be a part of that, to be a part of our program going forward for Energy Bus Schools. Energy Bus Schools to be a certified school, be a coach, be part of the coaching program every month, interact with other schools from around the country, learn and grow from each other, an amazing community, and have a curriculum you can implement on an ongoing basis, daily basis, to help you build your school culture. For the Power of Positive Leadership, we work with principals and school districts to train all the principals in a district to be a stronger leader, a better leader, a positive leader, to implement the principles we talked about today. And then the Power of a Positive Team, in terms of how to become a stronger team. Those are our workshops where we do school by school and we work with schools in that way. So those are our programs: Power of Positive Leadership, Power of Positive Team, and then the Energy Bus for Schools. 3 programs to make a greater difference. We hope the ideas we shared today help you. And if you're interested in any of these ideas, just reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. Only reason why we're talking about this is because we know it makes a difference, because we're passionate about it, because we love impacting schools. We love knowing that this is the future. There is no more of a noble profession than being a teacher, than being a school leader. I truly believe it's the most important job on the planet because we are helping students create the future. And I meet so many people that I came to speak to years ago, even students that are now in their 20s, right? Energy Bus has been around a while. And it's so cool to see the impact. Jim Van Allen is one of the people that I met years ago when he was 20, and now we're working together. Jim has been working with schools for years, and he has seen the impact. And so we just want to assist you in any way possible. Anything we can do to help, just let us know. We appreciate you, we value you, and we know that you are incredible at what you do. And we thank you for your time, your energy, your service, and sacrifice. Yes, it's not just the military that sacrifices. They sacrifice in a very powerful way, but you also sacrifice in many ways. And we thank you for the work that you do. Jim, any final words?
John, you and I talk a lot about servant leaders, and that's who we are. We're here to serve. That's why we built these programs. We want to serve you and help you and make a difference. And thank you all for getting, having a successful year. And please reach out. We would love to help you, work with you, and create positive campuses all over. We appreciate every single one of you. And thank you for being here and giving us your time too. That's much appreciated.
And we know the best is yet to come. So whatever this past year was like, we know that we're moving in a more positive direction. You have dealt with a year that was like no other, right? This past year was like no other. You couldn't make everyone happy. School leaders, teachers, we know. Some people were happy about not being in school, some wanted to be in school, some wanted masks, some didn't want masks. We know that you couldn't make everyone happy. What you did, some people were unhappy. But we know this. We know that you persevered. We know that somehow, some way you got through it because you're here right now. And we know that the future is bright and the best is yet to come. And that's what we're believing. And we want you to join us in that belief as well. All right. We'll see you soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. On your way out in the chat, just share one thing you learned or one thing you're going to take away with you in the chat, one thing you're going to do differently as a result of this webinar. We would love to see that in the chat and one action you're going to take. It's all about action. We can talk about it, but if we don't do it and if we don't be about it, I don't even know if that's a word, but it's not going to happen. So we got to make it happen. Let's make it together. All right. I'm looking at the chat right now as they're coming in. Being encouraged. I love it. Supporting my school, collective teacher efficacy, encouragement, being intentional, get past the 20th mile, collective teacher efficacy, resiliency, meet with 1 to 3 of my colleagues each day to build relationships. I love it. Be present. Yes. Focusing on the now. So important. Staying positive, address negativity, be more intentional. We love it. So good. Pursue some coaching, hopefully feeding yourself. Ask my students how I can help them. Such a great question. How can I help you? Strive to be the best version of yourself. Be resilient, role model. Yes. So again, we hope to see you at one of our trainings. We hope to see you at a public event, or we hope to see you in person at your school district. And we'll see you soon. All right. Take care and God bless everyone.